Imagine sitting down for what should be the happiest meal of your life, only to realize it might be your last. This is not just any family dinner, it's a night of betrayal, a night where trust is shattered and lives are changed forever. In the bustling city Lagos, where a soon to be bride named Adana is excitedly preparing for her wedding to the love of her life, Chike. But as she dreams of her future, her stepmother Ijoma has other plans, deadly plans. This is a family dinner you won't forget. Adana had always been the light of her family. Her father Obina adored her, and she grew up knowing nothing but love and warmth. But everything changed when her father remarried. Enter Ijoma, Adana's stepmother, a woman who wore a mask of kindness but harbored a heart full of envy and resentment. You see, Ijoma couldn't stand the sight of Adana. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the love and attention Obina showered on her daughter. In Ijoma's eyes, Adana was a threat, and she couldn't bear the thought of her own son Chike falling deeply in love with Adana too. With the wedding approaching, Ijoma's bitterness grew. She couldn't allow Adana to have everything: her father's love, her son's love, and the peaceful life she felt should have been hers. And so a plan began to form, a plan that would rid her of Adana once and for all. Adana, oblivious to the venom brewing in Ijoma's heart, carried on with her wedding preparations. The wedding day was fast approaching, and tonight's dinner was supposed to be a small, intimate gathering of family to celebrate before the big day. The family gathered in their Lagos home, candlelight flickering on the table, the smell of freshly cooked food in the air. But what no one knew was that Ijoma had prepared more than just a meal. She had prepared a deadly trap. While everyone was busy with wedding talk, Ijoma slipped into the kitchen. There, she added a secret ingredient to Adana's meal, a poisonous plant, one that was nearly impossible to detect. A single bite, and Adana would fall sick. Another, and she would be gone forever. Ijoma took great care not to raise suspicion. She smiled sweetly at Adana and even offered to serve her plate, pretending to be the loving mother in law. Meanwhile, Chike, caught in his own world, didn't see the growing tension between the two women. He trusted his mother blindly, never imagining she could harbor such evil thoughts. But that night, everything was about to change. Let's take a moment to explore the family history. Ijoma wasn't always this way. In her younger years, she had dreams too. She was a beautiful woman who once hoped for a bright future, a happy marriage, and a loving family. But life hadn't been kind to her. Her marriage to Obina was strained from the beginning, and her relationship with her son Chike was the only thing that brought her any joy. When Obina remarried and brought Adana into their home, Ijoma felt her world crumbling. Her insecurities took over, and she saw Adana as a constant reminder of everything she'd lost in life. For Adana, growing up without her biological mother was difficult, but she had always tried to keep the peace. She respected Ijoma even when the woman gave her cold, dismissive looks. Adana wanted nothing more than to blend their family together, but Ijoma had other plans. Ijoma's son, Chike, was trapped in the middle of it all. He loved Adana deeply, but his loyalty to his mother clouded his judgment. He couldn't see how manipulative she had become. Ijoma had whispered poisonous thoughts into his ear for months, making him doubt Adana's intentions, even though she had never given him a reason to distrust her. The dinner began. Everyone gathered around the table, laughing and enjoying the food. Adana took her first bite, unaware of the danger lurking in her plate. For a moment, all seemed normal until suddenly she felt a strange tightness in her throat. She coughed, trying to shake it off, but the burning sensation grew stronger. Her vision blurred, and panic began to rise in her chest. She looked across the table at Ijoma, who stared back with a cold, calculating smile. Adana's heart raced. This wasn't just a coincidence. Something was terribly wrong. She tried to speak, to call out for help, but her voice failed her. The room started to spin, and she felt her strength slipping away. In that split second, Chick noticed the change in Adana. He rushed to her side, panic in his voice. Adana, what's wrong? But Adana could barely respond. Her body began to weaken, and as she collapsed, chaos erupted around the dinner table. Ijoma, calm and composed, watched as the scene unfolded, but in her mind, something wasn't right. This was supposed to be the end of Adana. Yet Chiki's desperation, his love for Adana, pierced through her cold resolve. Could her plan truly destroy her own son's happiness? Chike cradled Adana in his arms, his heart pounding in fear. He screamed for help as the guests rushed to assist, but no one knew what had happened. They searched for answers, but the truth lay hidden in the shadows of Ijoma's deception. Ijoma sat still, watching as her son's life unraveled before her eyes. This was her doing, her twisted plan. But as she gazed at Chiki's tear-filled eyes, a deep sense of guilt began to stir within her. Was this truly what she wanted? To see her son in agony? As the minutes ticked by, the weight of her actions bore down on her, and the perfect facade she had built over the years began to crack. But it wasn't over yet. The night was far from over. Adana, lying unconscious, was now caught between life and death, and no one knew what to do. The guests murmured amongst themselves, whispers of suspicion filling the air. What had caused this sudden illness? Could it have been something she ate? The tension in the room was thick as everyone's eyes turned toward Ijoma. Meanwhile, Chike was frantic, his mind racing for answers. His love for Adana was undeniable, but the seeds of doubt planted by Ijoma had taken root. Could it be that Adana had kept secrets from him? Was this somehow her fault? As he struggled with these thoughts, the room grew colder, the tension unbearable. The truth was inching closer, but Ijoma's dark secret remained hidden for now. The atmosphere in the room had shifted. Everyone could sense that something dark and sinister was unfolding, but no one dared to speak it aloud. Chike's mind was a whirlwind of confusion, and Adana's life hung in the balance. And through it all, Ijoma sat quietly, battling her own inner demons. Would she confess, or would she let her plan succeed? Could she truly live with the consequences of her actions? In this moment of truth, the lines between love, jealousy, and betrayal blurred. And the question that loomed in everyone's minds was, who would pay the ultimate price for this deadly dinner? Would Adana survive to tell her tale, or would Ijoma's poison claim its victim? Adana lay motionless on the floor, her breathing shallow. Chiki's heart was pounding as he cradled her, his mind racing. He couldn't understand what had gone wrong. The dinner had been perfectly normal until now. But as he held her close, his mind went back to the strange feeling he'd had earlier that night, a sense that something wasn't right. The murmurs of the guests grew louder. They couldn't deny the strange tension in the air, and slowly suspicion began to swirl around the room. People whispered, pointing glances at Ijoma. She sat still, eyes cast downward, her hands trembling slightly. Cheek, desperate for answers, looked up at his mother. Mama! he called out, his voice laced with fear and anger. What happened to Adana? You were in the kitchen all day. His voice trailed off as he struggled to complete his thoughts. Ijoma's heart skipped a beat. For a moment she was frozen, her plan crumbling before her. The weight of her guilt was too much to bear. She had been prepared to see Adana suffer, but seeing her son's anguish, it tore her apart. Her eyes flickered to the guests, then back to Chike. She knew there was no escape now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ijoma spoke, her voice trembling. Chik, my son, she began, barely able to meet his eyes. I I never wanted it to be like this, but I couldn't bear to lose you. Chik's confusion deepened. What are you saying, Mama? Tears welled up in Ijoma's eyes as she broke down, confessing the unthinkable. I did it, Chike. I put something in her food, something to make her sick. I couldn't let her take you away from me. I couldn't. The room fell deathly silent. Everyone was in shock. Chike's eyes widened, disbelief washing over him. You, you poisoned Adana, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Ijoma nodded, sobbing now. I'm so sorry, Chike. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I couldn't stand losing you to her. I thought, I thought I was protecting us. But Chike wasn't listening anymore. His world had come crashing down around him. The woman he loved was lying unconscious in his arms, and the mother he trusted had betrayed him in the most horrifying way. He couldn't comprehend it. His own mother had poisoned his bride. In that moment, a wave of guilt and rage washed over Ijoma. She had been so consumed by her own jealousy and insecurities that she had lost sight of what mattered most, her son's happiness. Now she realized the full extent of her mistake. She had nearly destroyed the one thing she claimed to care about the most. The guests immediately rushed to get help. Adana was quickly taken to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. It was touch and go for a while, but after hours of waiting, the doctors finally emerged with news. She's going to be all right, the doctor said, and a wave of relief swept over the room. Chick's heart finally slowed as he took in the news. Adana was alive. She had survived the poison, and slowly she would recover. When Adana woke up, weak but safe, Chike was by her side, holding her hand. Tears filled his eyes as he apologized over and over again, though she had done nothing wrong. Adana, even in her weakened state, forgave him without hesitation. She had always been kind-hearted, and even now she held no grudge. But the pain of betrayal still hung in the air. Ijoma's actions had nearly torn them apart, and the scars from that night would take time to heal. The next few days were filled with quiet conversations and heavy hearts. Chike was forced to confront his mother in the days that followed. He visited her at home, where she sat quietly, her once proud demeanor now shattered by her own guilt. I'm sorry, Mama, Chika said, his voice heavy with emotion, but what you did, I don't know if I can ever forgive you. Ijoma looked at her son with tears in her eyes, knowing that she had lost him. I never wanted to lose you, Chike. I thought I was doing this for us, for you, but now I realize I've lost everything. Chik's heart was torn, but he knew what had to be done. He had to protect Adana from his mother's toxicity, no matter how much it hurt him. I'm going to marry Adana, he said quietly, and we're going to start a new life. Without you. Ijoma nodded, tears streaming down her face. She had no words left. She had poisoned more than just Adana's meal. She had poisoned her relationship with her son. And now she was left alone, consumed by her own mistakes. And so Chike and Adana moved forward with their wedding. It wasn't the joyful celebration they had imagined, but it was a new beginning for them. Their love had been tested by the darkest of circumstances, but they had come out stronger. Together, they built a life full of love, trust, and forgiveness. As for Ijoma, she lived the rest of her days in regret. She had let jealousy and insecurity cloud her judgment, and in the end, she paid the ultimate price. The bond between mother and son was broken, and she was left to reflect on her choices. This tale reminds us of the dangers of envy and the devastating consequences it can have on relationships. It shows that no matter how deep the scars of betrayal, love and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. And that, my friends, is the end of our story. A tale of betrayal, forgiveness, and the choices we make in the name of love. What do you think? Was Ijoma's fate justified? Could Chika have done more to mend the broken bond with his mother? Or was her betrayal simply too great to forgive? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Chike's shoes? And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing folk tales and suspenseful stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Make sure to hit the bell icon so you're notified when we drop our next tale. Thank you for watching, and remember, trust, once broken, is hard to repair. Be mindful of the choices you make, for they have lasting consequences.